on a project that I did with my students on using Instagram in the classroom, and I used it to help reinforce and teach reflexive verbs, and I think it went pretty well, so I hope you like it. A little bit about me. Let's see here as I figure this out. Obviously, this is me. I am a French teacher, and as Edwige mentioned, I am now with the Cherry Creek School District in Denver. And if you should have any questions at all after this presentation is over, please feel free to email me. I'm happy to share any handouts or anything, you know, any materials if you have questions, or I'm happy to stay in contact and provide anything that I can. Okay, let's see, I'm going to change the screen here a little bit. I think that helps me a little bit better. Okay, so a little bit about my story. The school that I have been teaching in up to now is kind of a challenging school, and one thing that I was having some difficulty with in my classroom was student engagement. I was really working hard to find ways for them to get engaged in their learning, to take ownership of their learning, and I wanted to find new ways for them to demonstrate proficiency. And so as I was looking for some professional development opportunities to renew my teaching license, I came across the K-12 Elevate program that is offered through CU Boulder. And I thought, you know, it's a Saturday a month, not a big deal. I should be able to do that. I think it would be a great way for me to get more technology into my classes, maybe to engage my students. It would just seem to be like the perfect fit. So I did that program throughout the year. It was one Saturday a month, and it was great. I learned all sorts of new tools and different ways to use technology in the classroom, and that was especially helpful for me. In my state, we have a new evaluation process, and technology is a large part of that. And so we need to show proficiency, and it's more than just turning on your overhead projector or taking attendance, you know, using PowerSchool or Infinite Campus or whatever it is. We really needed to show that we were using technology efficiently. And so, excuse me, that was another way that I really appreciated this K-12 FLTP program. It really helped me feel confident in checking off those boxes and in showing my administration that, you know, I knew what I was doing and I could use technology in some effective ways. And after I finished that program, then the program kind of grew and changed into the Elevate program. Actually, I think they're two separate programs. But it was a chance for me through Elevate to do a little bit more, to take the knowledge I had gained in the K-12 FLTP and to even broaden that further. And also, professionally, it provided me university credits, which allowed me to recertify. I mean, it was just good all the way around. It was great for me professionally. It was great for my kids. And I've been able to take what I've learned here in this program and present at various conferences. I share with my colleagues. And so it's been a wonderful experience. So anyway, I just wanted to give you a little bit of background on why all of a sudden I was so interested in technology. And so one of the projects that I developed, as Edwige mentioned, is this reflexive verb project. I had three goals in doing this. I wanted a meaningful way for my students to demonstrate proficiency against the standards. In the classroom, that's what it's all about, right? The kids need to be able to demonstrate that they're learning. It's not just a question of filling in the blank anymore. I wanted to satisfy the standards of technology on my teacher effectiveness tool. So that was a great personal benefit for this. And then I really wanted my students to get more engaged in what they were learning, to realize that French existed outside of the classroom, that it's an everyday normal thing. And I wanted them to really increase their ownership and engagement in learning the language. So this this project and this program that I'm doing really has just ticked all the boxes for me. So let's talk about this project. I thought I would start first by showing you some of the materials that I use to introduce the project to my classes. I don't just dive right in. At this point in the unit, we have done reflexive verbs or pronomial verbs, however you would like to refer to them. So the students are fairly confident with them. They've played around with them. They know the vocabulary. They're pretty good at putting them together and using them effectively. And so as we start this little portion of this unit of study, I show them this picture. And I just thought that that was a great introduction. Selfies before smartphones. Sometimes I think our kids don't realize that there were people that came in this world before them. It's all about them. And so I like this especially as well, because many of these artists are ones that we talk about in French class. And you notice that there's Spanish, there's German, there's all sorts. So I think this is a great graphic to share, and that to show students that this image of self-portrait, of being very interested in yourself, has been around forever. This is not really a new phenomenon. It's just taken on a new form. And so we talk about Van Gogh and Monet, of course, you know, we've studied in class. I'm familiar with so many of these paintings. The kids know them from history and French and all sorts of classes. So this is a great little lesson opener that we use. Okay. And then the next thing that I share with them is a short video clip. Now, this video clip, of course, is in French, and I'll play a little bit of it because I know we have a few French teachers with us. And but I think it's important to note that no matter what your language is, there has got to be a clip out there that talks about this love of selfies and how it translates into your target culture. And so I think I can play this. We'll give it a whirl and see what happens. Oh, I bet you it's not going to work for me. But that's okay. Anyway, this is just a quick little clip that I have that is talks about the selfie phenomenon.
Today, right?
Yeah, I think it's because I'm not in present. Do you want me to go to present? It kind of allows me not to see the speakers, but then I can do that. Let's do that.
If you can play it.
Sure. No, I don't think it'll work now because I'm in present mode. Okay.
En amoureux devant la Tour Eiffel, entre copines ou même en solitaire, tout le monde pratique le selfie, traduisez autoportrait version 2.0, qu'on poste ensuite sur les réseaux sociaux. C'est pour montrer aux autres ce qu'on a fait, où on est allé, à condition que la photo soit belle, bien sûr.
C'est plus sympa, c'est rigolo. Regardez, on se prend pas au sérieux.
Elodie, styliste de 23 ans, est une adepte quotidienne du selfie depuis 2 ans. 3500 personnes regardent ses photos en ligne.
Moi, je le fais le matin, en fait. Je montre mes tenues à mes followers pour leur donner envie de s'inspirer et aussi les conseiller sur comment porter telle ou telle pièce.
Le phénomène séduit les stars Justin Bieber, Cameron Diaz, Miley Cyrus, comme les politiques Nadine Morano et plus récemment Barack Obama. 48% des Français avouent le faire régulièrement, contre 25% il y a 1 an.
L'écosystème, c'est que je me mets en scène moi-même pour être une vedette pendant un quart d'heure, donner mon avis, et puis je m'en fous de la vie des autres, je veux surtout exprimer le mien.
Le meilleur selfie reste encore le cliché pris dans un endroit exceptionnel.
Okay, so anyway, the reason I chose this clip was because I thought it was a great introduction. It showed that selfies are an important part of everyday life, no matter where you're from, what part of the world. They talked about the reasons that they take selfies, where they share them, that when we share them on Facebook or Instagram, it's because we want to put ourselves out there and share ourselves with the world. And that's something that's common no matter where you're from, whether you're in the United States or whether you're halfway across the world. And it's a great listening exercise also for the students. I have a set of questions that go with it just to kind of see if they generally understood. And then we use that as a springboard to talk about selfies, both in their culture and in this country and also in the French-speaking world. Okay, let's see here. The next thing I'd like to show you and share with you is the little questionnaire that I use to generate conversation in class with my students. This is a series of 5 questions, and I invite them to first fill out the questionnaire for themselves. They are number 1. And the questions are, for those that are not French-speaking, do you take selfies? Believe it or not, I have students that do not take selfies. I didn't think that was possible in the teenage world, but it is. Number 2 says, if you do, where do you take them? And if you don't take selfies, why not? So it really gives students a chance to reflect on their practices, their life, and what they do. Question number 3 is, where do you share your selfies? Maybe they have an Instagram account, maybe they don't. Maybe it's just through Snapchat. There's so many different platforms out there. Number 4 is, why do you take selfies? And then number 5 is, what do you think about people who take lots of selfies of themselves? We all have, people in our lives, whether it's a friend or a celebrity, where they're constantly with the camera in front of their face. They can't go anywhere without taking a selfie.
Yes, I have a few. I blocked them from my Facebook feed.
There you go.
Wait, Rachel, Eric is asking, what level of French is this? Was it French 2?
This is French 2, but it's an advanced French 2 honors. I think it could be easily adapted to any, I think level 1 might be a little bit challenging, but 2, 3, 4, I would use this unit in an AP class as well, on the aesthetic. So I think it could be adapted for any level, but I have done this with my honors French 2. And then how I use this grid after that, so the student themselves have filled out the first column, and then I put them into groups of 4. And then they share. They kind of ask this question out to the group, and then they write down, and then they chat about it. And then so that by the time that they're done, the grid is filled, and you kind of have the position or the opinions of every member of the group. And then I take it to large group, then we go together as a whole class, and then I basically ask the same questions again. Who in the class takes selfies, and why do you do it? And so it really gives a chance to scaffold this activity, where the students get to write it down first and self-reflect. Then they get to share in a small group, hopefully building their confidence and just sharing with a few. And then we go large group, so that they have then the chance, if they wish, to share out amongst the whole class. And it's worked really well. Let's see, the next little thing that I do in terms of introducing this unit is to share with the students an infographic that I found online about the selfie phenomenon in France and in Europe in general. And it's really great because it gives them lots of statistics, shows them really how French teenagers are no different than themselves. And this is just a little tidbit on this slide of this larger, longer infographic. And it tells them, the 5 principal places that people take selfies, on vacation, in their own homes, while they're out, maybe with friends, in their room, and then, maybe at an event, like a concert or a movie, and that our teenagers are like, oh, wow, they do those same things. Yes, they do. And then reasons for taking selfies, right? To immortalize a happy moment, so to remember a happy moment, to remember something that was funny, to capture or to photograph a really great looking outfit. And another one there, it says that 13%, because they're feeling really confident, maybe they would just accomplish something. Our school just had graduation, and I can't tell you how many selfies I saw. They were very happy, of course, they just graduated, and that was something that they wanted to remember. And then the last one on there, 14%, is to capture or to take a picture of a brand new haircut. Of course, again, that's a great thing, confident, look at me, I'm great. And I think our kids can really relate to those, that no matter where you are, it's all the same. Okay, so let's dive into the project itself. That's kind of how I introduce it, and this is how I structure the project. We have three little important elements. I require 20 pictures. You could do more, you could do less. I thought 20 was a good number. So, and of those 20 pictures, because I want them to target these pronomial verbs, I require that 8 of them be straight up reflexive or pronomial. In French, I'm not sure about the other languages, but we also have some verbs that qualify in this category. They're idiomatic, that aren't necessarily reflective of actions they do to themselves, but are just that way. They're part of expressions, and so our students also need to show proficiency in that. And then also, this is done at the end of the unit, and so I want them also to do 8 verbs in the past tense, because selfies are reflective of things that have happened. And so this is an activity that specifically targets these kinds of verbs, but also the past tense as well. Then we have the description. As each student takes their pictures, I also require that they caption them with 2 to 3 phrases in the past tense. One phrase certainly would have been easy, but I want them to kind of build their language skills, and I think that it's easy to say, I woke up at 6 o'clock, but I want them to go further. I want them to say, and I was really tired because I stayed up late studying. And so it's just, you know, that sense of doing everything you can to build your language skills and not just being a minimalist. And then the last part on this slide is the hashtag. They're required to put in 2 hashtags per photo. I require that they be in French, and that to them is just the funnest thing ever. And this is just a realm of using the language that I don't think they've ever really thought of. They do all of these things instinctively in English. They could do it in their sleep. But they're like, you mean they have hashtags in French? I'm like, well, yeah. You think you're the only people that use these things? And so we do a few demo ones, and they get really excited about all the creative ways that they can come up with these great hashtags. Okay, so that's the project just in a nutshell. Let's go into a little bit more detail. Sharing. This is an interesting one. I quickly realized, even before I shared this project with students, that there was going to be the necessity to have a school-based Instagram account. I personally, even though I'm mother to 3 teenage daughters, did not have an Instagram, and so I went and got an Instagram. And I realized, as my children were showing me how it worked and all the ins and outs, that the kids use those things for their private lives, and so I wanted, as a teacher, wanted no part of that. There's that huge line between personal and educational, and so I required each of my students to create a separate Instagram account that was reserved specifically for school for academic purposes. A lot of them wanted to use their personal one because they just, I have to go make a new one. Yes, you do. And so we made sure that that barrier and that we kept those lines in place between teacher and student, and that this was for school only. And let's see, other things that about sharing each of these photos that the students were taking was that I required my students to comment on each other's pictures. Again, there's that whole social aspect of using this technology in this way. I wanted students to comment, and to comment in French. I'm just trying to cram in as much language exposure and usage as I possibly can. And I quickly put a limit on the number of comments, because of course the students who are very adept at using technology such as Instagram and are on it all the time were commenting on each other. Students who were best friends, who liked each other, I said, nope, I do not want to have a couple of students end up with all of the comments, and then other students end up with maybe just one, or maybe none at all. So I told them that they could not comment on any one picture more than 3 times. So as they were out there commenting, they needed to go and search a picture out that maybe wasn't their best friend. Maybe it was somebody new in class, somebody that they didn't know very well. And this is also a great way for kids to get to know each other, to build those relationships, to build that sense of community in the classroom. And so that was also another aspect that I put in.
Rachel,
Yeah.
Eric asks, were there any students who did not have access to Instagram, or who maybe did not have a smartphone?
Excellent question. Yes, I'm so glad you asked that question. I naively thought in this day and age that everybody has a phone, but believe it or not, there are some students who don't. And it wasn't necessarily because the student didn't want to. It was more often than not the parent's choice. It just was not the way that they wanted their kids to be out in society and on digital networks and sharing, probably because they've seen lots of things about everything that can go wrong. So I did have that, and how I accommodated is that I asked the students to still participate and take the pictures and do the captions and do the hashtags, but I had them actually do it in a presentation to me, like on a PowerPoint or a Google slide, and so the parents felt comfortable with the students sharing it with me, but they did not want it being shared with their classmates. And I can understand that from a parent perspective. I think those of us that teach high school and middle school, well, actually probably any level, have seen stories of bullying and things that can happen, and it is a part of life. It's something that we need to learn to deal with. But I left that into the student and the parent's control. I just found another way for them to still fully participate, but to do it with me as the instructor rather than with the class as a whole. And so I was happy to accommodate, but that is how I did that. And if they didn't have access to a phone, if that was the other issue, we were lucky enough that we had some flip cameras and different things in our library that the students could check out. And so we were able to accommodate that as a school in that way too. All right.
Takes forever to unmute my audio. How many students were, out of your whole group, how many students were not able to participate?
This was done with a class of 33, and I had 2 that had to do it using a presentation rather than on the social media. All right, let's see. All right, grading. Let's look at grading. This is just a really generic grading scale that I used. And I know each school has different ways that they grade. I can think this could very easily be transferred to a rubric or to whatever it is that you feel most comfortable with, but I just did this on a simple 100-point grading scale. The 20 points was for photos, 1 point each. And then another 20 points of the project was for the hashtags. They were required to have 2 hashtags in French. 40 points was for the captions, because again, that's the language usage piece, so I wanted that to have a heavier weight. And they had to have a minimum of 2 comments for each of their own specific photos. And then another 20 points was for comments on their classmates' selfies, which came up to 100 points total. Again, this could be totally changed around depending on your specific situation. All right, well, let's see. Let's look at a couple of student examples. These are some pictures that my students took, and they're kind of self-explanatory. I feel kind of silly explaining them to you. Obviously, this is one of my students. She's very artistic. She's great. She's one of my best kids. Doing, showing herself putting on makeup, which is a reflexive verb in French. This one is another one, se promener, going out for a walk. This gal's going out for a walk with her dog, and she talks about that. A couple more down here. Another picture of a couple of my girls in my class being goofy in the bathroom, brushing their teeth. And then one of my boy students over here getting ready to wash his face. Now, all of these, of course, are reflexives, and I think if there's one comment I would make about this, when I introduced this project, the girls immediately branched onto it, thought it was the best thing ever. They were super excited. The boys looked at me in great horror and dismay. They were, really, we have to do this? And I'm like, yes, you do. A lot of them were just like, oh my goodness. And if you had access to our account, my school Instagram account, you would see that there's a reason there's only one boy picture on here, because much of the boys look like they're being tortured while they're doing this. They just did not like this project very much at all. But the girls really got into it. And actually, I was surprised to find after this was over that several of my boys do Instagrams. They just were not happy sharing them in this format. And so I think that's something interesting to take into consideration for the next time that I do this. I'm certainly going to continue this project. I think it was very effective. I think overall it went well. And I think just to kind of build it up a little bit more and to encourage my male students to share maybe a little bit more freely. And then there is the last slide. If you ever have questions, or after you think about this, if you'd like to contact me in any way, absolutely, please do so. There is my email address. I'm happy to share with you the project sheet that I gave out to students. I'm happy to share with you the infographic. If you're a French teacher, the questions as well. They could easily be translated into any language. And I thank you so much for coming and for being part of this today.
Thank you so much, Rachel. I just did a very, very quick search, and it does look like women are a lot more likely to take selfies than men.
Yeah.
So I think that's very interesting. I'm wondering whether for the boys who are not interested in doing the activity, maybe they could do it in the third person with other people or with figures, whether toys or, whatever. They could be creative in that way. That wouldn't really be a selfie, but I think that could be an alternative.
I actually agree with that very much. I saw somewhere, and I don't remember where, I'd love to be able to give credit to this great idea, that they did kind of a flat Stanley type of thing where they just had a character that they made on paper and it went with them wherever they went. And so they talked about a typical weekend and very similar to this, but you're right, it was in the third person. And so that took the pressure off of putting yourself out there in front of the camera, but still allowed that same type of experience.
Yeah, they could talk about their pet, il se repose.
Right, no, exactly. Another thing I think would be great, since we're talking about this, and it's something we also do in the Elevate program, is a telecollaboration between an American class and a French class. I think that would be absolutely tremendous for building, cultural awareness between the two classes. It'd be a great way to share, what an everyday life is, what they do. That just to me has tremendous potential. And so I might explore that in the future of doing that. Setting up a relationship with a class in France, and then having this be one of the things that we share across between the two groups.
Great. So you're thinking of doing a telecollaboration project next year?
Next year, I will being in a new school, I might wait one more year. I don't want to upset the apple cart too quickly.
So just for reference, Rachel is finishing the Elevate course on telecollaboration. It's a 2 credit hour, 8-week course that is actually taught by a telecollaboration expert. She's her name is Carolyn Fuchs, and she lives in Hong Kong, but she's researched the topic, and so the course is about how to set up those exchanges. And I think the selfie project would fit right in. It would be a great way to get the students to know each other a little bit more. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? So somebody has a question. Can you explain logistically one more time? 20 photo times 30 students is approximately 600 photos.
It is. I was hoping they wouldn't notice that. It is a lot. And to grade it, it is 600 photos. I just created kind of a little spreadsheet where I kept track of all of the things. And so I would organize them by student. And first I just flipped through for each student and see if they did the 20 photos. And that was quick. And then I went through it again and I just read their comments as they went. I know it sounds like a lot, but once you got into it, it did not take that much time at all. And also students, this was like a week, it's about a 10-day project. I gave them 2 weekends as well as a full week of school in between to do it. And it was much easier for me if I tried to just look every day and see what the kids had posted. And so that's how I kept up with it. You're correct though, it is 600 photos, but it doesn't take that long to grade. I just made myself a little spreadsheet and had each of my criteria and kept tallies, and it went really quick. Another thing, if I could add one more aspect, my students asked me if I would participate in this as well. And so I did so, and it was kind of really enlightening. And so I think that's kind of fun as well. Something to think about if you do this project yourself, whether you would like to participate along with the kids. I always have a motto in my class, I can't ask them to do anything I'm not willing to do myself. So if I'm going to ask them to do it, then I did it out there with them. And so they always had great comments about, oh, I didn't know you had 4 dogs, madame, and I didn't know all these other things about you. So it's a great way to get to know your class and for them to get to know you.
And then the other part of that question was, so did you guys follow each other? How did you organize that?
Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, we did follow each other. That was a requirement. When they set up, we did this in class, actually. We took the last 15 minutes of class. Each of them had their Chromebooks. And we created the Instagram accounts that were school-based. They had to follow me, and I followed them. And so we just took care of that little bit of business before we even left, and they even put up their first picture. So they had that required school account. We saw that we were all there, and then we all followed each other. Yeah.
Any more questions for Rachel? Going once? All right, thank you everybody for coming this morning. This was recorded. Unfortunately, I forgot to hit the record button, but it's at the very beginning. So the first 3 minutes are missing, but it's the 3 minutes where I was talking.
Oh, okay.
And it will be closed captioned, and it will be posted to the Elevate Certificate YouTube channel. So you get an email with the recording and all the information. If you have any questions, feel free to email me about the program. And if you have any questions about the project, we'll also post the slides. And maybe, Rachel, if you have some additional material that you want to share, your spreadsheet or something.
Sure.
Sounds good?
That sounds great.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. All right. So everybody's saying thank you in the chat window. Perfect. All right. I'm going to stop the recording. Let's see. Voila. Okay, I'll stop the recording.